Okay, my name is Stephen Barstow, and welcome to my garden here in just outside of Trondheim, in the little village of Malvik, here at 63.5 degrees north. And we're right in the middle of the best season for harvesting in my garden, because it's mainly perennial vegetables that I grow here. The garden has maybe something like 2,000 different perennial vegetables, and today we're going to wander around the garden and collect as many possible vegetables for a multi-species salad, which we're going to make a bit later today. And where I'm standing just now is in the middle of what a lot of people recognise as a forest garden. A garden with predominantly edible plants and with different layers. Right down on the ground layer here we see a plant which is called in English Lesser Celandine. It starts growing even up here in the near Arctic very early in the springtime. So this year we had a very mild winter, and this started. I could start harvesting the leaves of this already in January. Above this we have ostrich fern, which is actually come too far for harvesting, and it's Norway's biggest or tallest fern, and you use the young fiddleheads as food in the springtime. It tolerates, it's a nice plant to have in a forest garden. It loves to have shady conditions. We see another plant here which originally completely covered the garden here. This is ground elder, and there's huge amounts of it in the garden, but it's actually one of the most tasty and healthy plants that you could wish for. So we're going to harvest a bit of that for the salad here. The lesser celandines come too far. We have another plant here which is also kind of semi-wild in the garden. This is giant bellflower, Campanula latifolia. It has delicious, slightly sweet tasting spring leaves. So that's a very good plant to have as a basis of a spring salad. There are also numerous dandelions in the garden here. This is one, just a wild dandelion. We'll see various others as we wander around the garden. So we can take those. This plant here, you may be wondering what this is. This is actually my largest vegetable. It's called udo. It comes from Japan, and it can reach by the middle of June. This plant's going to be about 3 to 4 meters tall, and it's actually at almost the perfect time for harvesting. Normally I would blanch it. In other words, I would put a bucket over the plant in the very early spring, and then the young shoots would come up in the total darkness and would be milder tasting. The green udo, it comes from Japan, and in Japan they use both the green udo, often in tempura, and the white udo is used in salads and various other dishes. So I think we'll just take a little bit today for a salad. It's quite strong, but it's very good in mixed salads. Okay, so this is the udo. Okay. Otherwise, we have behind me here we have this is an old blackcurrant bush, which is actually looking rather flattened, because every autumn the udo falls on top of it, and the weight of it crushes the plant, unfortunately. But it's still alive, and we can still harvest the blackcurrants. But the young shoots are also very good in these spring mixed salads. This is there are actually two different rhubarbs growing together here. This is a wild or semi-wild rhubarb, Rhubarb palmatum, and next to it is a cultivar, one of the modern day rhubarbs. And Yeah, you don't have to have masses of sugar on rhubarb, you can use it as a vegetable as well. So I often have the leaf stalks of rhubarb in these mixed salads, and you can also use the palmatum. Slightly sour taste. These mixed salads, they often have a mixture of different tastes. You've got mild plants, you've got bitter plants, you have sour, you have sweet, and all mixed together. Every mouthful will be slightly different, which is so exciting. I'll pass these over. Down here we have an ornamental version of ground elder with these variegated leaves. You can see it's sometimes planted in woodland gardens. It tolerates almost complete shade, and you can use the particularly the young shoots. Nettle, you can actually even eat nettle in salads, but you have to crush the leaves properly, just to destroy the stinging hairs. And once you've crushed them, you can then just pop it in the mouth. Very tasty, nutritious. Here we have cow parsley, which is you've got to be a bit careful with because it can be confused with other poisonous species of in the carrot family, Umbellifus. But I know that in this area the poisonous lookalikes don't actually, we don't actually find them. So here's one of many currants that we have in the garden, and it's in full flower. I'm not sure, it's a wild species of currant, and these are just delicious at this stage. You can really taste the sweetness when you
nectar.
Fantastic, yeah. And nice decoration also gives a little sweetness to the salad. So we can pick a few of these. This is gooseberry in full flower. They're quite pretty actually, and they're also quite sweet tasting at this time when there's lots of nectar in the flowers. Then we've got rowan. This is a wild rowan that's growing in the garden. Recognise the leaves, and the leaves actually have they actually taste of almonds at this time, and you can even make almond cakes with rowan leaves. Delicious. Down here we have Alchemilla, lady's mantle in English. You can see this little droplet in the after rain, and these can be used. The young leaves can be used in these mixed salads. Very neutral, a neutral taste, and they're quite decorative as well. One year we decorated the salad with the droplets intact. Another wild plant in the garden. This is a dock, a big problem species in normal agriculture, but we can use these young shoots as a vegetable. There's a plant called hedge garlic, Alliaria. It's actually related to the brassicas. There's one coming out into flower. They're rather beautiful flowers, which are nice to decorate these spring salads with. So it's related to the cabbage family, but actually tastes a bit like garlic, and the flowers are rather delicious. So I have a few of these, particularly the top shoots, are rather good at this time of year. You can also cook with them. There's 3 or 4 different species of Aralia. Aralia's in the ginseng family. This is one from California, Aralia californica. That also has these young shoots which can be used a bit like udo that we saw. It's not quite such a big plant, but can be used in the same way. Here we've got raspberry, sort of wild raspberry in the garden. Delicious small berries. Most of the rubus species related to raspberry, you can use the young shoots in the springtime, again in mixed salads, and used traditionally around the world wherever raspberries grew wild. Sweet Cicely, a big invasive species here in Norway, can form big colonies. Has these very typical white blotches on the leaves. It's a plant which has a nice anise, licorice type taste of the spring leaves, and particularly the young seeds when they're still green are delicious. So we can have a little bit of that. There's another currant which is in full flower at the moment. This is Rebis sanguineum. They're rather pretty, aren't they? So I think we'll have a few of those in the salad to decorate. Nice, eh? Let's carry on up the hill through the jungle. This is actually Angelica sylvestris, or wood angelica, which is one of 2 species we have here in Norway, growing in the wild. This is a cultivar with these dark, kind of purplish leaves called Vickers mead. So it's a nice edible ornamental. Here it's just a wild species called Viola dubiana, rather large flowers. This is a large chives. It's called middleman for some reason, I don't know, but it's a rather one of the largest varieties of chives that I've come across. And of course, chives is one of the most commonly grown alliums or onions around the world, and the only actual species that you can find in the wild, both in North America, in Asia, and also in Europe. Here we've got Leucanthemum vulgare, or ox-eye daisy, and this is actually a very tasty spring vegetable, or a spring vegetable, and also spring. It tastes a bit like aster. I don't know, it's difficult to describe. What do you think? Can you describe that taste? It's kind of a bit aromatic.
It's a bit round. Mild.
It's mild, but has a special taste as well. So that we can use quite a bit of.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Nutty? A little nutty taste?
Slightly nutty, yeah, perhaps. And then on the left-hand side here we have another one of my favourite onions. This is looks a bit like a young leek. Yeah. It's actually an onion called rocambole, Allium scorodobrassum, which is one of the onions which we know the Vikings cultivated in Scandinavia. And it's perennial. It kind of divides itself. You find a nice little clump like this. And actually, in this climate, it actually produces more than leeks do.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's perennial. It comes back year after year. You do nothing.
Great.
Yeah. So it's much less work, and produces these tasty spring. Well, you can also use them in the autumn. Oh, this is one of last year's. It's a ragged jack kale. And this is just about coming into flower. Yeah, you can use it as a kind of a broccoli in the salad. Take the side leaves. It will resprout and flower.
Like kale, a little salty, or?
Sorry?
Does it taste like kale?
Yeah,
or?
it tastes like kale. Yeah, it's
Salty.
It's a kind of an old variety of kale, which goes back 100, 200 years. So we know that variety's been around for that length of time. Behind me here we have a garlic, which was planted in the autumn. Yeah. Just take a leaf, put it in the salad. But this is a sorrel, a red-leaved sorrel, which I call wine sorrel, because it has the same colour as red wine. In fact, it's actually a subspecies of sorrel. Rumex acetosa subspecies Vinealis. Vinealis means wine. Next to that we've got another sorrel. This is Rumex scutatus, just one of the 80 plants in my book. Very nice sour taste. Totally perennial. This plant here is probably 20 years old. Just comes back year after year and gives these delicious spring shoots. Well, again, you can use it most of the summer if you cut it regularly. Over here, this is a hogweed. Kind of a bit of a weed in this row here of patience dock, another plant in the Rumex family related to those last two, the Rumex scutatus and acetosa. And it has much milder taste to the leaves. It's not so sour as these other ones. So people that don't like sour, they like this one particularly. So you can use quite a lot of this. Here we actually have a row of caraway. It's mostly used for the seeds. Probably the most, well, it is the most used spice in Norway through the ages. It's a plant which grows right the way through Scandinavia, even in the far north, so it's totally hardy. It's a biennial, grows from Norway to the Himalayas, its wild distribution, and throughout its range people use the young leaves as a vegetable, both in soups but also in salads. So we can have a little bit of that. This is parsley, which I sowed in the autumn. Parsley shoots could also be used, so we just put a little bit of that up in the salad. It's a Siberian nodding onion. Allium nutans, very broad leaves like this. Very tasty, extremely hardy. And this is a selection I've made myself of from seed of a broader leaved variant. Just down at your feet here, we have one of many dandelions I grow in the garden here, deliberately. This is a red-leaved dandelion, Taraxacum rubifolium. It has these dark leaves. That one wasn't that dark, but they're very dark early in the spring, and they become greener as the season develops. So they're very nice in very early spring, in salads to add a splash of colour.
Do they taste different?
Taste is pretty similar to other ones. Here we have a very common weed around the world, often called white man's or Englishman's footprint. This is greater plantain, Plantago major, which and the young leaves of this have very tasty, kind of nutty taste to them. Let's just use the young leaves, because they get a bit coarse after a while. And further up we have some red-leaved dandelion. This is actually a spring onion that I planted last year that's overwintered, called Ishikura, I think it is. There's another one here called ramrod, so they're good. So this is kind of spring onions. This here is, in the US they're called walking onions. You can more or less at this time of year use the whole plant and part of the bulb as well. This is actually called an Amish topset onion. So they produce, like Egyptian onions, they produce these top sets, these onions on top. Doesn't produce seed, which the top sets can also be used. So it's a plant you can use pretty well all through the season. So this was a variety which was grown by the Amish people in the US. This is Viola lutea, and it has yellow flowers a bit later in the season. You can also use the leaves. And over here is another variety of Angelica sylvestris, or wood and Angelica, not the red one. This is just a green-leaved one. This is chickweed, and this you can use in the springtime, both in salads but also to make soups. And you might as well use it. It's there, always will be there. And next to it is actually a Japanese perennial vegetable called mitsube. Cryptotania japonica. This is the green variety of Cryptotania japonica, which is very commonly used and you find it in all the supermarkets in Japan in the springtime. It's sometimes called Japanese parsley. It doesn't really taste of parsley, it has its own taste, but it's in the carrot family like parsley is. This area here, I have 6 different varieties of Russian sorrel, which I found in a vegetable catalogue in Estonia 2 years ago. So I bought all the packets and I'm just trialling to see what the differences are between the different varieties of Russian sorrel. Very popular vegetable in Russia. The Sami people, the Laplanders in Norway, this is a very important vegetable for them. Harvested in the springtime and fermented. You can also use the young flowers. So they're just about coming into flower, see? On the ledge here we have a beautiful spring flower which is also edible. It's called alpine rock cress, Arabis alpina. It's again in the cabbage family, and the young flowers are both tasty, and they're also nice to have as decoration on your salad in the springtime. Totally perennial, totally hardy, perfect. This is another plantain species, Plantago caucasica from the Caucasus.